Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with this week's Wednesday Wisdom guest, but as always, we want to give our sponsors a shout out. So stay with us. It's just going to take 3 minutes. These are all great companies. You should be using them too. We want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. You know, we use surveys for everything at our school, for kids, for coaches, and for parents. And the information that would come back was almost always over the top positive, and it'll be the same for you. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables, and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. You've heard me say before, probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com to see all the great things they can do for you. We want to say thanks to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others. And one of the cool things about their program is while you're completing your master's, you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Check out Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. We'd like to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is the official high school sports platform for a number of states, thousands of ADs, and even if your state has a different platform for scheduling and results, you can be a home campus school. I'm telling you, the athletic clearance and eligibility platform alone is a game changer. Go to homecampus.com for more information. We want to say thanks to Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results? Those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. We used it at our school with tremendous success, and so will you. They've got a lot of other great platforms that you should check out, but if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it, and it's Snap Raise. We want to say thank you to Huddle. You know, as a football coach, I used Huddle for years. As an AD, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches, our student athletes, even our parents just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We'd like to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the different events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. You put one of these units in your gym lobby or your main school hallway, it's going to be like a magnet for kids, for coaches. How about sponsors and parents? Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and don't forget to mention the podcast. We also want to say thank you to Gipper. Go to gipper.com and you can turn your school's social media platform into the next level. Their templates, their ready-made displays are really going to allow you to take your program from good to great. Go to gipper.com, see all the great things that they can do for your program. We also want to say thank you to Hometown. Hometown's changing the game for schools and organizations with their suite of solutions that includes things like digital ticketing, athletic website construction, fee-free fundraising, and a whole lot more. Whether you're an athletic director or principal, Hometown is going to help you save time, raise more money, and bring your community together. You'll find it all at hometown.com. And as always, don't forget to mention the podcast. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast. We have one of our regulars, longtime listeners will certainly recognize the name Julie Kelly. Julie is a certified athletic administrator. She's the director of athletics at Providence Classical Christian School in Arkansas. Has a tremendous background as an athletic administrator. I always like to share this. You already heard she's a CAA. She's very active at the state and the national level. Just finished the QPA. Julie actually got her start. She was a longtime athletics administrative assistant, so she knows the job, probably better than a lot of ADs from that experience. And again, she is a very successful athletic director. Julie, welcome back to Wednesday Wisdom.
Thank you so much. I am so grateful to get to be on the show again.
Well, you and I were talking, it's summertime, school's just around the corner. Fall practices are going to start, so it's a busy time. Thanks again for sharing with our listeners. I'm just going to go ahead and ask, what do you have for us this week on Wednesday Wisdom?
All right, Jake, thank you. So today I'd like to talk about how we help head and assistant coaches work through conflict. Obviously, if we want to have long-term program success, we've got to work through that with some of our coaches. We're like a family. We don't always get along, and there are disagreements that happen. And as the athletic director, we have to work through those. So I'd like to dive into just one of the more sensitive and often unspoken parts of athletic leadership, and that's how you help the head coach and assistant coach navigate that conflict. Usually it's over coaching philosophy or differences of opinion. When people come on staff, you're thinking, oh, we have this great hire and we can't, I've heard that they're coming from this school and I can't wait to have them, whether it's on the head or the assistant, and you assume that people are going to fit in naturally, but that doesn't always happen. And sometimes they come in and there's conflict, and conflict isn't always a bad thing. When it's handled with professionalism and mutual respect, it can actually drive growth. It can spark creativity. It can refine a program's identity. You're bringing people in from different areas. And so part of who your program's identity can be meshed from these two coaches. But if you leave it unmanaged, it can divide a staff. It can confuse players, and it can break down the culture that we worked so hard to build, right? And so most often, conflict really arises not because one coach is wrong, but because their perspectives are different. So it could be on playing time, their practice structure, their in-game decision making, or even how discipline is handled, or even how one communicates and one doesn't, right? And so it's our job as athletic directors just to see what the long game is and guide the conversation and restore alignment without them feeling like we're micromanaging, because we want them to learn how to navigate right, but then sometimes, even like parents, we have to step in and help things. We want our kids to work out things on their own, but sometimes they need a little navigating, and coaches are kind of like that as well. And so one of the biggest mistakes that I see athletic directors make, and I've made that same mistake, is waiting too long to step in. So don't wait until there's a blow up on the bench, or there's a parent complaint, or that if you see that there's a problem and you sense tension, maybe through the body language at practice, passive comments in meetings, because you can be in a meeting and you can hear one of them say something to the other, and even player confusion. If you see players that aren't sure which one to go to and they're getting different information, it's really imperative that you schedule a sit down early. I think it's best when it's a little informal, but it's intentional. And you kind of need to think of it like preventative maintenance, right? And when they come in, you say something like, I've noticed a couple different coaching approaches during the last couple games, and let's talk about what we're all working towards the same goals. And so we're not accusing, right? We're trying to open a door for communication, because if we don't open that door, sometimes they might just sit there. Nobody wants to be in conflict, and a lot of times they don't want to talk about it. But when you bring them together, your number one tool is listening. So in giving both coaches a safe space to express their perspectives, I usually say let's hear what's been going on from both of you. My only rule when we do that is that we seek to understand each other and not to win. And you're going to have to work real hard because sometimes there are coaches that once one coach starts explaining, the other coach wants to butt in or overtalk or whatever. And so, and not usually because they're being disrespectful, but because usually they both just care so deeply and they just define success differently. One might feel like they need to focus on development and character building, while the other is super focused on competitiveness and game strategy. And both are valuable, right? They just need to figure out a way how to coexist. And then, one thing that I do is that once my coaches have shared with me, I try to go back and summarize what I've heard with them. I need them to know that this is what I've heard, because if you said something and I didn't understand you correctly, then I need you to restate that. And it might be that the other coach needs to hear that too, because sometimes what we say is not always what someone else hears, right? And so I'll usually say, so what I'm hearing, Coach Jones, is that you really value player consistency and growth. And Coach Smith, you're pushing for a faster type of play. Like, is that what I'm hearing? And, once they both say, yes, that's what we are, then we figure out how we can make those work together. And so framing their philosophies as being complementary to each other is key, because we all are taught different things, right? We all have different things that contribute to our backgrounds. And so if our philosophy is not going the same direction, it's like someone that's drilling holes in a boat, and we don't want to sink. We want to keep rowing down the river. So another thing about that is that many conflicts stem from roles that are not clear. It could be blurry. So assistant coaches are not just mini head coaches. They need clear expectations. And it's important that the head coach know that they do have the final say, but the assistant coach should also feel empowered to bring ideas, give feedback, and lead within their lane. And if they're not sure where the boundaries of their lane exist, then that is what usually can cause conflict. So it's a really important that the athletic director, when they're meeting with their head coaches at the beginning of the year, that they're just encouraging them to be clear in their goals for their assistant coaches, and to clarify what their role is. If it is teaching a certain skill, then talk to them about that. If it is you're going to be in charge of scheduling and communication, let them know what their role is. Let them know what as a head coach, what you would prefer to do. I prefer to handle ... this way, right? And so once they have clear expectations, it's important too that the head coach knows that they have the final say. But the assistant coach should always feel like they can bring ideas, give feedback, and that kind of thing. Sometimes when we have to have that conversation, there is a little bit of role resetting, because if the boundaries were not clear, we have to come back in and say, all right, what are the head coach's non-negotiables? And then that head coach has to redefine for that assistant, what is something that's non-negotiable for me? And then also, what are the areas specifically that I want my assistant to lead in? Like sometimes it's necessary that as the athletic director, we're rocking them through that, right? And so one other thing, we do this all the time with parents and student athletes, is we have like communication agreements, or we give agreements at parent-player meetings that a coach will have the parent sign saying, I understand that this is the obligation, this is the commitment, so forth. Sometimes it may not be a bad idea to create a coach communication agreement. That could be helpful, because that really is a written understanding of decision-making boundaries, your philosophy alignment, and how to approach differences, hopefully respectfully. I'm not always a fan of putting everything in writing, because then you can be held to it, right? And so, but that's also one of the reasons that you might want to do that, is if there's someone that you think is going to stray outside of the boundaries in the lane that you've created, then you have it in writing when you can go back, if it fails, hopefully it doesn't, but if it fails, you go back and say, this is what we decided. And you sign this saying that you understood that this was my goal for you as an assistant coach. And, as us as athletic directors, we're the culture coaches, right? That means that we're modeling respectful disagreement. We're modeling our consistency in values, our clarity and our expectations. And sometimes that means coaching the coach, that they need to do the same thing with their assistants. So in a meeting, if a head coach shuts down ideas from that assistant or they get defensive, that needs to be addressed privately. That's probably not something that we're going to have that conversation. Nobody likes to be corrected in front of others, right? And so if your head coach gets defensive, then they might actually do that when you're not in the room. And so if an assistant consistently is undermining the head coach, that's equally problematic. And that's something I probably would address together, because that's the assistant coach in with the head coach of like, you do submit to the authority of the head coach. We hired that person to be the head coach of this program. And so your job is supporting. And so sometimes to kind of soften a conversation, I do ask each coach to name 3 things that they respect about the other. And so it's amazing how quickly the tone can come down a little bit. And again, the goal is not to win the conversation or win the conflict. It's to win together. It's to make things better for the program, whether that's the basketball program, the volleyball program, whatever. Usually when I start asking coaches, tell me something that you like about your assistant coach, usually the assistant coach didn't know the head coach thought they were great at communicating or thought that they were a great relationship builder, because we get so busy coaching kids that we forget to tell our assistants how valuable they are. And we forget to tell them what they're good at. And so sometimes the reminder of just hearing that it is good for that relationship building, right? And, we have to be honest, sometimes despite our very best efforts, the relationship just doesn't work. And in that case, we have to go back and assess whether the assistant is still a good fit for the program or if they're better suited for another opportunity. And sometimes it may just be that the relationship fit, they might be better in a different sport. One of the other things about that is sometimes it's the head coach. Sometimes, it's not always the assistants that are insubordinate to the head. Sometimes it's the head coach that is either not leading well, has created a culture that's divisive. And we always try to do what is the very best thing for our student athletes and the health of the program. So when I make decisions, it's not personal. I'm not loyal to one person or even what's convenient. Sometimes it's convenient to keep a head coach instead of letting them go. But if they're harmful to our program and our culture, we have to do the best thing for kids, right? And so sometimes that happens. I'm hopeful that we can work things out. And I'm hopeful that when you go to talk to a coach or you have these kind of meetings, that there is an openness that says, I can receive what you're saying. I'm willing to hear from someone who is my authority, and I'm willing to work through this to make things better. But before you make a staffing change, make sure that as an AD, you've truly given both coaches support, the time and the opportunity to grow together. Things don't get better overnight. It will take time. It will take a willingness for them to work together. And also a reminder that conflict between coaches is not a sign of failure. It's a chance to reinforce your program's values, strengthen your staff, and build a culture where collaboration wins. Like we want to teach them how to start working together, continue to work together, be collaborative in the things that they're thinking, right? And as an AD, your leadership during those moments not just shapes that season, but it's how you're determining what your program's legacy will be. And I want my program's legacy to be one that we handle conflict in a healthy way, we address it. We don't sweep things under the rug even when it's hard, that we'll go in and we'll address to make us better, right? Because we do that with kids, but it's a lot harder when we do that with adults because they kind of see through us a little bit better than students do. So a lot of information, but
Well, no, I'm just so many great points that probably deserve their own Wednesday wisdom. But um, I think when we have these types of conversations, Wednesday wisdom or on the podcast, and you talk about conflict and tough conversations, we're so often we're talking about it's the coach parent conflict. And we don't talk enough about, making sure that our staff is communicating, how many problems that occur in the life of an AD can be traced back to poor or improper or miscommunication. We just don't spend enough time on it, and that um, when there's that conflict within a coaching staff, absolutely, that's an opportunity for the AD to uh, get involved and help each coach grow and become better. The conflict to me, looking from afar, you can say, well, hey, that's great. They're both trying to make the program better. We just got to figure out, how each one can, I guess, be heard. You talked about that very important, the head coach is the head coach. Okay. We got to respect them at some point, but then at the same time, if the head coach is just, as I like to say, gone rogue in some way, sometimes that's a completely different conversation. Um, and again, for listeners, Julie is at let's say a smaller school, and these challenges exist, whether it's small school or big school. Anytime you get people together, and at the end you talked about, these are adults, not kids. Well, sometimes. And I can even say I've been guilty of this in my 41-year career. Sometimes the adults can act like kids too,
yeah.
in the wrong, if they're not if they're not able to see things properly, it literally turns into. I remember as an AD, and as a coach, I know I did this during my coaching career, but as an AD, you're looking at these two coaches and you're going, "This is junior high. I mean, what's going on here?" And that's where the leadership needs to come in. Um, as since we've got you here, Julia, I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you go ahead and, since this is a Toolbox affiliated show, what's something that you've learned over the years in your toolbox to help get these coaches, or maybe even better, maybe you have something to prevent these types of things from happening? They're going to happen, but what's one quick tool you can share with our listeners to either help manage it or help prevent it?
Sure. Well, I do have a couple things. The first thing is I'd like to remind them, especially for those that are married, that sometimes the head coach, assistant coach is kind of like a marriage relationship. In the same way that my husband and I, when we got married, 30 plus years ago, I had to learn how to navigate some things with him because we're growing together, right? A lot of times the coaching relationship is like that you are in a relationship that you're navigating steps and you're learning that person. And so, but you're growing together. And so there has to be a little bit of grace sometimes too, in acceptance in the way that you respect that coach. The other thing is, last week I met with my athletic administrative team, and one of the things that we talked about was we have the 24-hour rule, right, with parents that you don't approach us after a game because you're heated. They need some time to calm down, to think about things. The same thing for us as athletic administrators. It's really good to exercise that 24-hour rule because we're about to enter the fall season, right? And it's one of the most busy ones for a lot of athletic directors. And so when someone sends me an email at 9 o'clock at night, and either we just lost a game, I've had a lot of parent complaints, I'm tired because I've driven, 2 hours to a ball game and 2 hours back home. I'm hungry because after we left the ball game, all the restaurants were closed. And so now I'm driving home. I usually try to respond to texts and emails, especially from parents, as quickly as I can because I want them to know that it's addressed. But there are times that as athletic administrators, it's okay to wait. It's okay to get some rest, to sleep on it. It's all right to eat, um, to just slow down, to cool off, because sometimes I've had so many things go on that I'm overwhelmed and overstimulated, and my response may not show as much grace or understanding as I would when I am rested and not hungry and things like that. So I think probably the biggest thing for athletic directors, take advantage of that same time frame for yourself. It could be even responding to your administration about something that you feel called out on, or maybe that you feel like you're getting called on the carpet for something. If you just take some time to rest and take a breather, get some rest, eat, things look differently tomorrow. And we handle things when we're not overly stimulated and our senses are a little bit different. So that probably would be my biggest resource in the toolbox, is take advantage of that same opportunity that we encourage parents to do.
Just again, it's captain obvious advice, but it's
Yeah.
something that we just don't do enough. Talking about spouses, my wife was a career coach, Hall of Fame coach, at the same time, same school I was at most of the time. And so, I'd come home from football practice or she'd come home from cross country and, we're both going, about something else. But at least at least we knew the person that we were talking to sort of kind of understood what we were going through.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
Julie, as always, great spending time with you. Some great advice for our listeners. If they want more, if somebody wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit or just add you to their network, what's the best way that our listeners can connect with Julie Kelly?
Sure. Well, I am on LinkedIn. That's really one of the best ways, I think, nationally to connect with a lot of athletic administrators. And then also my email at Providence Academy is AD as an athletic director at providence-academy.com. And so please reach out. I love, like I mentioned before we talked, before we came on the show, I love investing in younger ADs. I'm grateful for the people who invested in me. And so anyone that I can help along the way, I'd be glad to do so. So please reach out.
Yep. And again, listeners, if you're new to the podcast, just Google Julie Kelly and her many podcast episodes with us will pop up. Take a listen to them if you haven't done before. Just great resources. Julie, thanks again for sharing. Hope you still get a little bit more downtime this summer, and all the best for a great fall season.
Thank you, Jake. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Tampa in December.
Oh, absolutely. You're coming to my state now. For listeners, we want to say thanks to you for tuning in. And just a reminder that we do Wednesday Wisdom just about every week, and just about every day. We try to share stories and best practices from the world of athletics. So please join us again for the next episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Thanks again. Always a great time with Julie Kelly. Make sure you look up her previous episodes on the Educational AD Podcast. Before we go, we do want to give another shout out to our sponsors. Now, remember, these are companies. I used them as an AD. They're all great companies. I highly recommend that you check them out. We want to say thanks to Gipper. Talk to their team, start creating world-class content for your school's social media channel. That's Gipper.com. Sideline Interactive. What more do I have to say? It's the best purchase I ever made as an AD, our indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Home Campus is a platform you're going to use every single day. Their eligibility and clearance platform alone is a game changer. That's homecampus.com. Ohio University's online masters for athletic administration, my assistant AD, along with thousands of others, got their masters through the Ohio program. Check it out. Hometown, they're the leading digital ticketing provider for schools and colleges, but they also do athletic website construction, fee-free fundraising, and a whole lot more. Go to hometown.com for more information. Vital Signs Wall of Fame, a really cool way to display your record board. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Snap Raise, if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Snapraise.com. Huddle, I used it as a football coach. As an AD, we were a Huddle school. Go to huddle.com. And Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. If you're not using a survey to take the pulse of your student athletes, your parents, your entire school, you're missing out. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Thanks again for listening to this segment of Wednesday Wisdom. Come back and join us again for another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Thanks again.